how do you mix your skies. And rather than actually sitting there and mixing paint, which I'll talk about in a minute, I thought it'd be fun to go over some images that I've worked on recently to kind of just show you how the sky can variate. So first, let's cover the idea of mixing pigment. Just know that in most cases, the sky is kind of a rich color, and so you really have to be sure that you're grabbing some clean white and some clean pigment. And when I'm mixing my skies on my palette, a lot of times I'll reach from the back of the pile of my paint that hasn't been contaminated by the brush or the knife. And with this being said, not every sky is just pure blue with white, right? And each blue, believe it or not, has a color too. Like if you're high up in the alpine, you'll find that the sky carries not only a darker blue in value, because value is so important with the sky, it'll be darker, but a lot of times it'll have a lot more purple in it. It'll be a more warm red with red, or sorry, warm blue with some red. So I'll use a ultramarine versus a cobalt. And other days I'll use a cobalt knowing it's very, very cool. The catch is that we don't want to rely on just blue, because a lot of times when you're analyzing the sky, it's not just blue, it has other colors in it. And so just be aware when you're mixing, you just have to make sure you bring in pure color. And it's okay to change the color. Let's say I want to push it more like a little cad yellow in there, that's fine to warm it up. Or you can use a viridian even if to find that warm blue, kind of a yellow blue. You just can't let touches of red or another primary color get into your pigment mix, or it'll just kill off and kind of die. So it's a question of keeping it rich if it is a rich sky. Now, there are times that skies can look very gray and muted depending on what's happening with the light. A lot of times the sunsets, those skies can be very gray, which allows the ground plane to look so much richer. So everything I say is kind of, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because every situation is different. And that's why I brought up these paintings to discuss that part of it, is because each situation is different. So the two paintings, the painting up here, let me grab my marker. The painting up, oops, let me grab a new layer. Let me pull it up here to the top. This painting here and this painting here were both done from life. This one down here was done from some other sketches in a place I was in the Northeast. So let's talk about the plein air work. You can tell the skies, right, don't necessarily carry the color of the photograph. And that's because when you're working from life, you'll see that those skies really aren't what the camera tells you they are. For example, in this late evening sketch, one of the first things I did is when I kind of laid in the shadow of this large plane, I immediately put a note of blue. And when I say blue, it was almost like an off-white color, kind of a gray blue, because that was what I was seeing. And I needed to have this color down to know where I was going to be all throughout the rest of the painting. So by putting that color note down, it at least gives me a clue on where I am. And then, sorry, I had a phone call come in. You'll know kind of where you stand. In fact, I'm going to zoom in and we can take a look at the little pinks that I found in the skies. I kind of looked. There was so much warmth bouncing around in the shadows that I could see that some of that color was almost picked up into the sky, just by observation. And you can see in the image how, in the photograph, how everything is so cooled off, right? Our cameras make that decision for us and cooled off the sky. But that's not how it was when I was standing there painting this. There was just a warm ambiance around everything. So this is why this painting from life is so important, right? I did my photograph and my sketch. When I go to paint this, you bet I'm going to rely on the colors I was seeing out there more so than the photograph, at least temperature-wise, okay? So in this situation, the sky was very, very pale and had a little bit of that warm note in it, and that's what obviously helps create the color balance between the landscape and the sky. All right. So then we'll jump to the second scenario, and this was kind of an overcast moving light, which was ironic. I started this painting with the sky the way it was, and believe it or not, about maybe 2/3 into the painting, you can see over here these clouds are moving this way, and by the end I had kind of a bright blue sky. But my first initial notes in laying in was trying to find this value against this part of the sky, and I really made note of that yellow temperature. It was a very lemony, kind of color in the sky with it being backlit from the sun. So when I established those two, again, that helped me find the rest of the painting. In fact, these were put in as an afternote, these blues. I thought, well, I need to add a little more blue in there to help it. We know what the color and light's doing, and so I was able to use that color I was seeing in the sky to kind of hint at it. But again, look at the photo. We don't see that warmth or yellow in this light around the shadows of the clouds, and that really was there. You have this really warm, rich yellow, which offsets the violet shadows, and even you can see that kind of yellowy light that falls on the snow. It's the same light, so it's going to have the same temperature in both the sky and on the landscape. So this is very important, right? And how do we pull that out of our photos? Well, this is the problem with photography and using your experience and or a sketch from life. So in this situation, I would have mixed, you can see I kept that yellow pretty pure. It's very keyed up. If I get too dark, then it becomes too rich. But there was that yellow, and I kept it pretty clean, right? Other than where the shadows fall, these little shadows on, where the clouds are so thick, they're not getting a lot of that warmth. Then they can become a grayer related color, okay? And last, let's talk about this study here. This painting is a larger 16 by 24. You can see I arranged some boats in this little area we were in. There was a bunch of little dinghies kind of laying out on these little island marshes, and so I kind of rearranged them with my photography, and one of the boats that was moving by, I took from different photos and just put them in together. But the goal was, in the sky here, was to capture this warm to cool temperature that runs from right to left. The sun is over here, and so it's going to have a more impact on the sky, and when it's light, as we move away from that sun, it's going to have less of a impact on the sky over here. And I know from studying the area that you'll see, you kind of can't see it there, but there's a little bit of a cloud kind of coming out there. If you can kind of see that, it doesn't show up in the photo. And same with these over here, you just don't see it. But what was happening is you get these pinks where here the cloud was a little warmer and a little lighter than the sky. But that same cloud moving across the background, when it came in front of the light on the zenith here, it cooled off and went a little darker. So that observation helped me set up how those clouds look in front of the zenith of the sky, right? And obviously it tells us that warmth over here tells us, and value, tells us that's where the direction of the sun's coming, okay? And you'll notice I am not a really pure blue. I mean, over here in the corner, I'm pretty blue. But on the left, you can see how much yellow, and even that pink, there's a pink that runs along the horizon there too. So this observation out there, comparing notes and color, trying to figure out what's happening in that landscape, right? And knowing that ahead of time, going into, say, a picture from a photograph, you're just not going to see those colors. So what I'm trying to get at is, that when we come to mixing color for the sky, it's relative. It depends on where the sun is in the sky, right? How clear the light is, if there's atmosphere, if there's fog, if there's clouds. These all take part in their effect on how we see the light in the sky and against the zenith of the sky. So, there's no one way to mix a color. It's more understanding and observing what that color is related to everything else in the painting, just like we relate something within a painting, an object within a painting to another object or area. It's the same with the sky. There just no is one answer. I wish I could say it was X mixed with X added to white and you'd have a perfect blue sky, but it's just not the case. Just know your mixtures, that if you find the sky leans to a more violet, you're going to use an ultramarine. If it stays a really crisp cool, then you'll use your cobalt. If it leans with a little bit of yellow, you can add a little bit of lemon yellow to your blue, your cobalt blue, to bring in this kind of warmer yellow blue, right? That's in the sky, or Viridian will work because Viridian's got a little yellow in it. Um, and this is part of, it's not just experimentation, but again, it's observation, looking and seeing what the sky is doing. And if you have to, take a notebook or write it down, or note it in your phone somewhere that this was the color I was seeing on this day at this time. And that way, when you're back in the studio, if the photo doesn't show up, you've got a little bit of note taking or visual information in your brain that you've written down to make those notes. And of course, I'm going to go back to saying the last thing is it is always value. Value is what carries the sky, knowing how much light, how light or how dark. If the sky gets too dark, it doesn't carry light. If it's too light, then and compared to landscape, then it doesn't look like the light's casting on the landscape. For example, this one up here, you can see how atmospheric and light. With the sky being this light, I was seeing a lot more light in those shadows than the photograph is showing me. Everything was keyed up a little higher, and that just so happens like I said, the photo doesn't give you what you need. So I hope this helps. If you want, I can do another deliverable down the road actually mixing paint, but I don't think it's going to be any more valuable just watching me add a pure blue to a pure white and mixing it a bright value. Just know those values are important, and then decide what your temperature is. And the sky can carry other colors, like you see up here, these little notes of orange. I put them in there because I was seeing them kind of scintillate with all that warmth in the landscape. Observing it, it had a kind of a warm evening light. Hi, my name is Mitch Baird, and I'm over the moon about working with you. What an opportunity! 365 days to work at your own pace, receive personal feedback, and have access to a community of growing artists. That's invaluable. Aesthetics and the art of picture making is a lifelong pursuit, full of questions and stumbling blocks, but it's also full of wisdom and rewards. In the 25 years I've been painting and teaching, I've found that there is a crucial and particular way of seeing that every artist must grasp if they want to obtain wisdom. This visual perception is so important that it will be the starting point of this course. I will share with you visual tools that will strengthen your artistic eye and that in turn will fortify your knowledge and creative abilities. There are also certain fundamentals that all artists must know and use in order to find rewards and create successful paintings. Composition is of the utmost importance, as it's the core of visual communication. I will share facets of design, arrangement, and keeping balance. Drawing will feature concepts on proportion, shape, and linear perspective, as they are the forces behind two-dimensional and three-dimensional space. The lessons on value will present insights on how to see values clearly and how the form principle affects everything in our visual field. Lastly, I will cover color, the final frontier in an artist's exploration. I will share the aspects of building a solid foundation on how to see and identify color, as well as mix it and use it with harmony. No matter your level of experience, the information shared in this course will elevate your understanding and will assist you in your search for excellence. I look forward to helping you along in your journey, as well as sharing mine with you too.